Chosen one. I speak to you now as your loving guide. I know you, I see you, and I know this is no accident. You are not here by chance. Your prophetic scroll is being unsealed in perfect Kairos timing. I say this with sacred urgency. You are standing at the very edge of a destined moment, a sealed prophecy cracking open that could unfold today, tonight, or in the coming hours or days. Hear me, anointed one. The appointed hour on heaven's clock has come. This is a moment written for you before your first breath. I call you forward now, my child, to expect a divine unlocking doors, releasing chains, falling alignments aligning. As Habakkuk 2:3 reminds us, vision waits for the appointed time, and that appointed time is now for you. Ecclesiastes 3:1 declares, there is a season for everything. This is your season. Isaiah 60:22 whispers of sudden elevation. Receive that promise. Receive this declaration with reverence and faith, my beloved. I invite your heart to rise into urgent expectation. Prepare your spirit, your body, and your circumstances. The heavens are shifting on your behalf. Open your hands and say yes to what God has already written for you. Chosen one. Hear me now, I come to you as a loving guide who knows the map written on your spirit. I speak with urgency because heaven speaks in moments, and this is one of them. Your prophetic scroll, the sealed instructions that have been folded inside you since before your birth, is being unfastened. I feel the hinge opening. I feel the breath of Kairos moving across your life. This is not a gentle suggestion. This is a declaration heaven is intervening, and your season of financial pressure is being translated into purpose and provision. You have held tight through nights of counting pennies, through silence when you expected thunder. I know how heavy it has been. I have walked beside many who have felt that same tightness in the chest, who have asked where the breakthrough is. When I name your pain, understand this with absolute certainty. Every ache, every delay, every closed door has been preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. It was never punishment. It was God perfecting the vessel that will carry the overflow. My child, that refining was not to shame you, it was to shape you. Chosen one. Listen, the heavens are not late. They are precise. Your appointed hour on heaven's clock is here. I remember my own season of waiting the bills that stacked like unspoken prayers, the moments I wondered if I had misheard my calling. In that dry place, I learned something crucial. Scarcity taught me stewardship, not self-condemnation. Scarcity taught me the value of clarity over clamor. That was protection. It was pruning away everything that would have choked the river of blessing when it came. You too have been rehearsed by sorrow, so you could steward abundance with humility and wisdom. Anointed one. This is a time of unsealing. Imagine a scroll waxed and hidden, waiting for the exact breath to loosen it. That breath is moving now. I prophesy to your spirit that doors will open in ways the world cannot predict, through people, through ideas, through sudden agreements and divine appointments. You will see pathways where there were walls. Sometimes the unlocking arrives as an invitation that seems small but becomes monumental. Sometimes it comes as a closed season ending with a simple yes. Expect both. Expect God to use the ordinary to birth the extraordinary. I want you to anchor in one truth: the unseen realm is reorganizing on your behalf. I do not say this lightly. I have watched the invisible shift before it showed up in bank statements and contracts. I have stood at the intersection of prayer and providence and felt the change like a current underfoot. The spiritual mechanics of wealth are being recalibrated for you. The codes that have been sealed in your hidden scroll are being translated into daily provision. When I say codes, I mean the convictions, the callings, the gifts that were hidden until the container could hold them. You are that container now. Beloved, begin to let go of secret guilt and the smallness that has been wearing you thin. When you carry unworthiness, you close the channel. The heavens favor belief that is willing to receive. I speak directly. You cannot call in abundance while secretly denying you deserve it. Release that. Release comparison. Release the apology for wanting more. Wanting more is not greed. It is obedience when your wealth is meant to fund healing, creativity, and elevation. The same hand that taught you patience will now teach you how to steward increase. I also bring practical tenderness. Expect alignment, not accident. Watch for people who appear exactly when you need them. Watch for ideas that land like keys in your hands. Watch for doors that open without you having to push. These are not coincidences, they are divine alignments. When you encounter them, move. Faith is motion. The universe answers movement more than hesitation. When I was walking my own path from drought to increase a chance conversation I almost skipped became the doorway to a new season. That started with me choosing to show up to say yes, despite fear. This moment asks for spiritual surrender, not frantic striving. Surrender is not passivity, it is alignment. Place your hands on what you have and say with me, I receive the unsealing. Speak it aloud if you can. Ground your mind in the knowing that what has been withheld was for a purpose, that purpose is coming into view. I want you to feel the sacred urgency without panic. This is a holy emergency, the kind that wakes you to your destiny. Revere it, expect it, and prepare to move. Before I pause, hear this final word for this segment. Your finances are not simply about numbers. They are a reflection of a destiny being authorized. Your money problems will not dissolve because of luck or mere effort. They will change because the heavens have authorized a new assignment for you to steward. Receive this with faith. Prepare the soil of your life for what is being sowed. Stay with me, chosen one. Your Kairos moment is here, and heaven is waiting for your yes. Chosen one, I will now lay before you the keys that pry open the sealed scroll, the practical, spiritual, and prophetic alignments heaven is asking you to steward in this Kairos moment. Hear me, these are not mere tips. They are divine codes. Receive them as activations. I speak from a place of both revelation and lived testing. I have walked seasons where every coin felt like a prayer, and I have learned what actually shifts heaven into motion. First key, speak the scroll. Your words are gates. The hidden codes in your spirit respond to vocal faith. When you name what heaven has whispered, you authorize the unseen to move. Say aloud, chosen one, I receive my unsealing. I accept the provision written for me. Do not be shy, the voice of faith births the reality. I am not asking you to chant emptily. I am asking you to declare from the place of knowing, from the small confirmations you already feel in your heart. When I began to speak my own promise aloud in the desert, doors I had not even imagined began to knock. Pain and delay in that season were not punishment, they were preparation and pruning, so my voice would be ready to steward a larger word. Second key, steward the margin. Financial spiritual mechanics are simple, but holy increase follows faithful management. Stewardship resets the atmosphere. Create a sacred rhythm of giving, saving, and accountability. I know the temptation to hide money matters in shame. I have felt it. Yet when I learned to treat every dollar as a trust, the trust itself became magnetic. This is not legalism, it is alignment. The heavens are more willing to pour into a vessel that practices care than into one that treats money as last resort. Your season of scarcity taught you discernment. Now use that discernment to build margin, however small, and watch how alignment meets increase. Third key, obey the small yes. God often opens large doors through small, faithful steps. A conversation you almost skip, a message you almost ignore, a project you almost postpone. Those are the hinges. When I said yes to one humble meeting amid debt and doubt, it became the portal to a dozen providential connections. Do not dismiss tiny invitations. They are sealed with heaven's fingerprint. Remember, every delay you endured was protection and alignment, so you would not mistake a temporary fix for a destiny pathway. Fourth key, clean the inner bank. Forgiveness, humility, and identity work clear the channel. Hidden envy, secret guilt, or the habit of apology for wanting more will close your conduit. When I confessed my own fear of abundance, that I would be unlovable if I prospered, I felt a release like a door unlatching. Release comparison and the compulsion to prove worth through scarcity. This is not indulgence, it is restoration. The spiritual account of your life needs purity before deposit. The heavens trust those who are transformed because transformation ensures stewardship. Fifth key, activate prophetic partnership. Align with people who carry your activation. A single mentor, a trusted friend, a prophetic timer. These relationships will accelerate the unsealing. I have stood on the shoulders of prophetic voices who saw my scroll before I could read it. Choose connection over isolation. When mentorship meets obedience, the sealed codes translate into strategy. Do not expect heaven to carry you alone. It moves through covenant. Sixth key, move in Kairos motion. Kairos is responsive action when the moment breathes. The appointed hour is not passive. When you sense the shift step, the universe answers motion. Set one measurable action today toward the new season. Submit the proposal, send the application draft, the outline, place the call. You do not need to see the whole staircase. My own breakthroughs often began with one small, terrified step, and the fear was simply a sign that I was on holy ground. Remember, pressure was preparation. It primed you for the lift. Seventh key, establish a daily altar of gratitude and expectation. Morning declarations, evening thanksgiving, a ledger of answered prayers. These practices recalibrate your rhythm from panic to receptivity. Gratitude is not a bandage. It is an electromechanical signal to heaven that you are ready to receive. When I kept a gratitude ledger in the leanest months, the ledger became a map of provision. The heavens move toward hearts that give thanks before they receive. Eighth key, translate vision into covenanted plans. Write the promise down with dates, responsibilities, and small victories recorded. A scroll once sealed was activated by a scribe's hand. Your writing is your covenant with the visible. Commit to practical steps tied to spiritual deadlines. When you marry the spiritual word with a grounded plan, you make room for supernatural multiplication. Beloved Anointed One, each of these keys unlocks a portion of your sealed destiny code. They are both spiritual and practical because heaven loves to move in the ordinary. I am not offering optimism. I am delivering revelation tempered by experience. The seasons of delay you carried were preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, and now those scars are the seams through which blessing will pour. Stand now in the authority that has been quietly forming you. Take one of these keys and use it. Speak your claim, steward your margin, say yes to the small door, cleanse the inner bank, connect with prophetic allies, move when Kairos breathes, cultivate gratitude and write the covenant. I know the cost of waiting, my child, and I know the beauty of the arrival. This is your work and your worship combined. Trust what the unseen has been doing. Your scroll is opening. The appointed hour on heaven's clock is aligning with your step. And as you use these keys, the hidden codes will become visible provision. Chosen one, listen with the hunger of your heart. Heaven is not only opening a door, it is teaching you how to walk through it with dignity and purpose. I will speak plainly now about what to do when provision arrives, how to hold it, and how to translate supernatural favor into a life that sustains both you and the call upon you. I say this as one who has felt the tremor of God's movement and learned by trial how to steward what followed. I have watched sudden seasons of increase test the soul, and I have learned the disciplines that keep blessing from slipping through your hands. When pressure was heavy on my chest and nights were long, that pressure was preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, not punishment. When doors stayed closed and promises seemed delayed, those delays were protection, pruning, and precise preparation, so you would not step into more than you could steward. Keep that truth close, my child. The first thing to guard when abundance appears is your identity. Do not let your name become wrapped in your net worth. Your value was set before any account balance. When I first received unexpected favor, the enemy whispered that success would change my heart. I met that whisper with prayer and small acts of humility. It kept my hands clean and my vision clear. Chosen one. The second practice is sacred rest and wise reinvestment. Heaven will often give you a season of increase not to multiply your comforts, but to multiply your capacity. Rest is not laziness, it is recalibration. Take time to listen. Pause before you spend. I learned to pause by force at first. A sudden gift arrived, and I almost spent it on relief rather than on frameworks that would sustain growth. Pressure had taught me to be careful. That carefulness became protection when I chose to invest in systems, counsel, and structures that could hold more. See money as a seed, not a reward for relief. Anointed one, maintain holy boundaries around relationship and reputation. Increase attracts attention, some of it holy, some of it hungry in the wrong way. I have felt the sting of people arriving only at the sight of provision. When that happened, I had to enact boundary as worship. Boundaries are not walls of arrogance, they are lines of stewardship. Tell people gently what you can and cannot do. Protect your time and your giving so that your generosity is chosen, not drained by demand. This is part of the appointment heaven expects you to give, but it also expects you to keep the vessel intact. Thirdly, establish a prophetic ledger. Record every step of obedience, every yes you gave in faith, every prayer you spoke. This ledger is more than bookkeeping. It is proof to your spirit that heaven moved. When discouragement returns, reading your ledger will realign your heart to the facts of God's faithfulness. I began a simple practice of writing 3 signs each week: small confirmations, chance conversations, sudden help. Over time, those entries formed a map of how the scroll was opening. They kept me steady when new pressure tested my faith again. Remember, pressure refines faith. It does not cancel the promise. Chosen one, practice the discipline of immediate gratitude. When resource touches your life, thank before you bank. Gratitude is a key that unlocks continued favor. It shifts the frequency of your environment from needing to receiving. I will be honest, the first time I practiced extravagant thankfulness before a deposit cleared, I felt like a fool. And yet the act of thanksgiving became the pivot point. A channel opened and provision followed in ways I could not have planned. Gratitude is not superstition. It is sacred alignment with the source. Fourthly, be deliberate about mentorship and counsel. Increase is not meant to be held alone. I made mistakes in isolation and learned the hard way that prophetic partnership amplifies wisdom. Find people who have stewarded larger things well. Let them speak into your budget, your hiring, your expansion. Covenant relationships are accelerators. They will help you weigh opportunities and refuse seductive quick fixes that would entangle you later. When I invited trusted voices into my life, their prayers and discernment became practical scaffolding. Anointed one, return to your mission. Money is an amplifier of destiny, not a detour from it. Keep your calling at the center of every decision. When I tempted myself to chase every open door, I found that doors aligned with mission were the ones that multiplied fruitfully. Pressures that once felt like derailments were actually divinely ordered reroutes toward your central assignment. That is the mercy of the pruning. It directs resources into your highest good. Finally, prepare for overflow by preparing to give. The paradox of the kingdom is that generosity unlocks more of heaven's supply. When you tithe your time, talent, and treasure in ways that align with your calling, you create conduits for multiplication. I have watched offerings return tenfold in ways that were not financial alone. Influence, alignment, and favor expanded as I gave. This is not a formula to manipulate heaven. It is a posture that says, I trust the source that trusted me. Chosen one, anchor these practices in prayerful action. Move when Kairos breathes. Use your hands, your voice, and your ledger. I know the fear that dances at the edges of new seasons. That fear is true, but it is also a sign that you are on holy ground. Remember always that the hardships you passed through were preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment for this very hour. You did not waste your waiting. You were being made into a vessel that can hold the overflow without breaking. Receive this word as both declaration and invitation. Walk it out with courage and reverence. My beloved, your scroll is opening, and with it comes a discipline of heart and hands that will make the blessing sustainable. Chosen one. There will be seasons when the unsealing feels like a tremor instead of a trumpet. Expect resistance, sometimes gentle, sometimes sharp. When resistance shows up as late payments, arguments, or sudden fatigue, remember immediately that resistance is preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, not rejection. The forces at work are testing the seams of your vessel to see whether it can hold what heaven intends to pour. I know this because I have felt those tremors myself. I have seen nights where the phone did not ring and mornings where the plan seemed to stall. Each time the delay was teaching me discernment, trimming my reliance on timing that was not mine to control. When spiritual opposition arises, do not flinch. Fortify. Pray like a steward, not a supplicant. Call the sons and daughters who stand in prophetic position around you. I learned the value of covenanted prayer the hard way. I tried to carry breakthroughs alone, and the breakthrough almost slipped through my hands because I had not invited allies into the fight. The heavens often move through human instruments. Let others contend with you. Let intercession be the cord that pulls your scroll free. Guard your heart from the counterfeit. Increase will attract flatterers, fair weather friends, and schemes disguised as shortcuts. When temptation arrives cloaked in ease, test it. Ask, is this aligned with my calling? Is this consistent with stewardship? When I received a sudden offer that glittered like gold, I felt pressure to say yes immediately. That pressure was preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. It drew out where my trust truly lived. I paused, consulted counsel, and avoided a path that would have diverted my destiny. Your discernment now is a cultivated muscle built in the drought. Practicality must walk with prophecy. Establish transparent systems, a clear budget-wise counsel on contracts, and a trusted steward for money matters if you can. Spiritually sensitive people are not exempt from bookkeeping. In fact, we are called to excel at both. I learned to marry my prophetic words with practical actions. Where once I believed faith alone would rearrange accounts, I now see faith as the engine and discipline as the brakes and steering. This union keeps blessing from becoming a brief gust. When doubts rise, speak to them as if they were children. You are not the captain here, say calmly. Replace anxious whispers with declarations rooted in what you have already seen, small confirmations, timely connections, the hand that turned an impossible introduction into provision. Keep a log of those confirmations. I call mine a covenant map. Read it when the night is long. It steadies you because it reminds you that the unseen has already been moving on your behalf. Expect signs, not theater, but markers. A seat opening at the right table, a conversation that lands like a key, an unexpected small gift that catalyzes an initiative. Do not let the size of the sign become the measure of the miracle. God often uses crumbs to feed the destiny. I once received a modest referral that looked like nothing at the time, but it was the tributary that led me to a river. God's handwriting is strategic. Learn to read the footnotes. Do not be surprised if the very things you prepared to release become reasons to hold on. When resources come, pride can tempt you to hoard or posture. Remember why the unsealing came: to equip you, to serve, to heal, to create. Keep your center in mission. I remember a season where a financial shift tempted me to retreat into comfort. I resisted, reminded myself of the call that birthed me, and redirected those resources into a small ministry project. That project became a template for future multiplication. Your first acts after increase are prophetic declarations themselves. Teach your household the language of the unsealing. If you live with others, let them know what is shifting so they can align with the rhythm. I once tried to conceal my new season out of fear. That secrecy created tension and mistrust around my table. When I invited my family into expectation, simple rituals of gratitude at the morning table, conversations about stewardship, the entire household shifted. Alignment often moves faster when it is shared. Prepare also for a strange quiet after the unsealing begins. Not every movement will be loud. Sometimes the heavens rearrange the backstage while the stage remains dark. Hold your prayer life steady. The unsealing is a process as well as a moment. Your role is consistency. I have leaned into daily practices that keep me tethered short: morning declarations, a midday pause of gratitude, an evening ledger entry of small confirmations. These rhythms keep the vessel ready for overflow. When setbacks reappear, remember to reframe them immediately. They are not punishment. They are preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. I cannot overstate how reframing changed my posture. Where I used to collapse into discouragement, the new framing made me steady and strategic. If a vendor delays, see it as protection from a bad deal. If a meeting reschedules, see it as pruning of a misaligned path. This language transforms your emotional economy. Stand ready to give of what you receive. There is a velocity to kingdom economics. Good things circulate. I found that when I gave quickly and joyfully, not from scarcity, but from the place of covenant gratitude, doors opened that I could not have planned. Your giving is part of the unsealing because it signals to heaven that you are a conduit rather than a cul-de-sac. Start with the small generosity that feels genuine. Heaven honors the heart more than the amount. Finally, walk in reverent confidence. You are not stumbling into luck. You are stepping into a Kairos that has been set for you. Hold your head high, but keep your hands open. I know the temptation to clutch tightly, but remember the purpose you were chosen to steward: increase toward healing, creation, and liberation. Your stewardship is worship. My beloved, be vigilant, but not fearful. The unsealing will ask everything of your faith and return far more than you can calculate. Keep these practices close: discernment, counsel, practical systems, household alignment, gratitude and generosity. Let each step be a covenantal response to the movement that is already unrolling. The forces that tested you were not punitive. They were the sacred work of preparing a vessel. Receive the unsealing with a heart ready to steward what follows. Chosen one, come closer and hear the activation I place on your lips now. I ask you to speak with me not as ritual, but as covenant. Words are not empty here. They are the keys that loosen seals. I have watched declarations unlock doors I could not have engineered with effort alone. When I first began to declare the small things, I could barely believe a meeting, a name, a door the heavens answered with curious swiftness. Those declarations were not magic. They were agreement with the breath of Kairos already moving. Say these lines with me, gently, firmly, and expectantly. I speak them first, so you can echo, I am chosen for this hour. My scroll is opening. Provision finds me now. Speak them like a promise you already carry in your bones. Let the cadence of your voice align with the rhythm I feel moving across your life. When hardship tries to resurface as doubt, remember instantly that hardship was preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. That moment of remembering will reframe the fear into faith. Now receive a set of spoken activations crafted to shift the atmosphere. These are not formulas. They are covenantal statements that match the unsealing you are stepping into. Pause between each one and breathe it into the room as if the room itself were waiting. I receive the unsealing of my prophetic scroll. I accept the timing set for me before my first breath. I release every shame that would close my channel, and I open fully to stewardship. I steward every provision with humility, wisdom, and a heart for the purpose assigned to me. I move when Kairos breathes. I act when heaven opens the door. When you speak these, imagine the scroll inside you loosening, wax cracking, seals falling away. Speak them out loud if you can. The air responds to voice. Let me give you a practical rhythm to combine with these declarations. I call it the threefold Kairos practice, and it changed the trajectory of my own season when I was raw from waiting. First, morning alignment, 5 minutes of declarations, and 2 quick lines in a ledger. One thing you expect, one thing you are grateful for. That tiny act trains you to notice the breadcrumbs heaven lays. Second, midday motion, one small, measurable step toward a vision you have, even when fear argues it is premature. Motion births momentum. Third, evening inventory, read the ledger, speak thank you, and name one sign you saw that day. These 3 acts are small, sacred, and they build a bridge between the invisible and the tangible. I will be honest, beloved, the first time I tried this, I felt foolish. I declared a door that had no evidence, scribbled a prayer in a cheap notebook, and took one nerve-jangling step. The weight of delay pressed on me. That delay was preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, and I almost stopped. I did not. 2 weeks later, a call came that matched what I had declared. The movement was not instant, but it was inevitable once I chose to agree with heaven's breath. That is how Kairos works. It waits for your yes and then accelerates. Include a practical altar in your space, a small table, a candle, a notebook, and one object that represents the scroll, a sealed envelope, a ribbon, a stone. When you sit with these, you are creating a physical place where the invisible can touch the visible. I use my altar when a season feels loud with waiting. It recenters me. When you touch the object of your scroll, say the activation statements again. This is not superstition. It is sacramental behavior, body voice, and intention aligning. Invite a prophetic partner into this practice. I will not ask you to go it alone. There is power when another faithful voice prays your declarations with you. Find one trusted friend or mentor and agree to speak the activations together twice a week. In my life, a single shared prayer turned a single closed door into a corridor of opportunities. Covenant partnership multiplies the momentum and anchors you when tremors return. And when tremors come, remember, tremors are preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, not a sign that the promise is gone. Start to reframe your language around lack. Replace sentences that begin with "I can't" with "I will steward" or "I will prepare." Language shifts your nervous system. When I changed my inner dialogue from scarcity to stewardship, the outer circumstances began to reflect it. This is not about naive optimism, it is about aligning your inner currency with heaven's economy. Finally, take one immediate, tangible step after you speak these activations. Send an email you have delayed, ask for a meeting you have feared, submit the application you have edited for months. The heavens move toward motion. Your yes is the lever. When I learned to move before the full clarity arrived, more doors opened than I could have predicted. The act itself honors the Kairos that has found you. Chosen one. I place my hand on your courage now. Use these activations as both worship and strategy. Speak them, keep a ledger, create an altar, invite a partner and move. When doubt resurfaces, call up the line that doubt is preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. Say it aloud if you must, and then step. Your prophetic scroll is loosening. The appointed hour is here. Receive it like breathing, simple, necessary, alive. Chosen one. Now we steward what has been unlocked. This chapter is about containment, expansion, and spiritual engineering, how to hold favor so that it grows and multiplies without fracturing your soul. Hear me with both ears. Increase will test the integrity you built in the drought. When tests come, remember immediately they are preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. They are not rejection. I say this because I have been tested in seasons of sudden lift. I have watched windows open and then felt the tremor of what it would take to keep them open. Those tremors taught me discipline, and they will teach you the same. First, build a treasury habit. A treasury is not a bank account. It is a spiritual container that honors both present needs and future assignment. Open a dedicated account for assignment funds, a place where sacrificial resources can rest, earmarked for creation and healing, not only survival. I learned this the hard way. When a gift arrived at a time of desperation, I spent it as relief and later watched a larger opportunity pass because there was no capital reserve to say yes. Pressure then became preparation. It taught me to allocate with intention. Start small if you must, but start a place where provision can be set aside for purpose. Second, document your covenant agreements. When heaven aligns a person or a promise, put it in writing. A handshake is holy, but a written agreement transforms the invisible into accountable action. I nearly lost a partnership because I trusted memory over documentation. That mistake taught me the sanctity of clear terms, not cold bureaucracy, but loving stewardship. When you write it down, you give heaven a map to multiply through human means. This is practical prophecy. It honors the divine by turning faith into structure. Third, scale in seasons. Do not rush expansion simply because the door is open. Increase requires infrastructure. When my first season of favor grew rapidly, I had to choose whether to hire help or to overextend myself. I chose help, and that choice preserved my calling. Invest in systems that protect your time and preserve your prayer life. Hire slowly. Test people with small responsibilities before giving them the keys. Remember, the vessel must be able to hold the oil without leaking. Fourth, cultivate sacred simplicity. Increase will tempt you to add complexity, new toys, louder schedules, busier calendars. Resist the pressure to become noisy. Keep a core rhythm, prayer, margin, and mission. These three guardrails will preserve your center. I have found that when life stayed simple, my clarity increased and my decisions became easier. Complexity breeds distraction. Simplicity breeds depth. Fifth, create a generosity plan. The fastest way I learned to keep blessing flowing was to plan my giving as part of the budget, not as an afterthought. Designate a percentage for seed gifts, a percentage for your local community, and a percentage for creative projects tied to your calling. When you give with intention, you are telling heaven you are a conduit, not a cul-de-sac. This posture invites multiplication that is both spiritual and tangible. Sixth practice, regular audit and prayer review. Once a month, sit with your ledger and your prayer journal. Ask, where did favor appear? What resistance came? Where did my heart shift? This review is not legalism, it is sacred calibration. I do this like maintenance, a brief, honest checkup that keeps small leaks from becoming floods. Adjustments made in prayer and numbers together create longevity. Seventh, guard against the entitlement trap. Favor can be mistaken for owed reward. I've seen fellow travelers grow quiet pride after a season of visible blessing. If you feel entitled, bring it to the altar. Entitlement is the thief of increase because it misreads grace as currency you earned. Humility, my beloved, keeps the flow. Say often, I was prepared in the valley for this mountain. This remembrance reorients your posture towards stewardship. Eighth, leverage prophetic timing. Know when to wait and when to move. Not every open door is the right door. Some are tests. When you sense hesitation, speak to it. If this is for my highest purpose, make the pathway bright. If not, close it. I used this script once before a partnership pitch that felt shiny but unaligned. The door closed and a better one later swung wide. Discernment is a muscle you build by small obediences and faithful pauses. Ninth, anchor your identity outside of outcomes. Your worth is not in the harvest. Your worth is written into you. I repeat this to you often because it is the safety net for every triumph. Celebrate wins without letting them rewrite your identity. Keep a practice of naming what you would be thankful for, even if the outcome never changed. This spiritual discipline keeps you free. 10th, multiply mentorship. As you rise, multiply the hands that help carry the load. Sponsor someone, teach someone, mentor someone. The act of raising another protects you from hoarding and keeps your heart soft. When I invested in younger voices after my season of increase, I found doors opening in unexpected ways, networks expanded and new ministries formed. Your multiplication is not only financial, it is relational and generational. Finally, be relentless in gratitude and precise in stewardship. Gratitude is the magnet, stewardship is the container. Together they hold blessing long enough for its work to be done. I ask you now, chosen one, to commit to these disciplines as a spiritual covenant. Treat favor like a sacred loan from heaven entrusted to your hands. Walk with reverence, plan with wisdom, and give with courage. The unsealing you carry is a trust. Carry it well. Chosen one, receive this word as a mantle for legacy, not merely for a season, but for the generations who will walk in the wake of what you steward now. I have watched how a single unsealed scroll can rewrite family lines, repair towns, and shift atmospheres. This is why heaven is being meticulous with you. The weight of multiplication demands a refined vessel. Whenever you remember the nights of counting, say aloud that those nights were preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. They were the careful chisel shaping your hands to hold what is coming. You must decide now that your increase will be measured by more than comfort. Will it translate into culture, compassion, and continuity? I speak from a life where provision came and asked questions. Will you spend or will you seed? Will you hide blessing or will you hand it forward? The learning came not in the victory, but in the aftermath after a season of favor. I once rushed to spend on ease. I discovered that ease left me empty and the calling brittle. Pressure had prepared me to steward better. The loss was an instrument that pushed me toward wiser choices. That memory keeps me humble. It will keep you steady. Build structures that outlast you. Think in timelines of decades, not just months. Open accounts and legal structures that protect the gift and align it with your mission. Invest in education and training for those who will steward with you. When I first tried to expand without governance, a sudden gain slipped through mismanagement and pride. The pruning that followed was painful but necessary. It taught me governance. Now I say to you, governance is reverence translated into systems. It honors the source that entrusted you. Teach the next ones how to steward. Legacy is education. Invite young people into your process. Show them ledgers. Invite them to boardrooms. Give them small responsibility and sacred trust. I recall mentoring a young leader who sat at my table and learned to ask, does this build community? That investment returned tenfold in loyalty, creativity, and protection. When scarcity shaped us, we learned the economy of necessity. Now multiply that wisdom so hunger does not define the next generation. Protect your spiritual lineage. As favor expands, so will pressure to conform to worldly rhythms. Guard the practices that formed you. Prayer, the ledger of answered prayers, the daily altar of gratitude. These are not quaint rituals. They are the roots of your authority. I once neglected the morning declaration during a busy expansion and felt my discernment dull. The quick recovery came when I returned to the altar and read aloud the covenant map. Your devotion is the anchor that keeps multiplication from becoming a mirage. Prepare your heart for resistance disguised as counsel. Some voices will sound plausible but carry a different agenda. Test advice by two standards. Does it protect the mission and does it preserve your integrity? I learned this through a partnership that shimmered with opportunity but wanted me to abandon my core values. I prayed, I consulted trusted counsel, and I chose the harder loyalty. It saved me from a detour that could have fragmented my life. Resistance from others is not always attack. Sometimes it is pruning. Other times it is a filter. Wisdom discerns which. Ritualize remembrance. Create a family covenant, a spoken document that names your values, the purposes of wealth, and the practices of stewardship. We once wrote a simple covenant in my home. We give first, we plan together, we protect each other's calling. That document anchored decisions when the house felt pulled in many directions. When storms come, the covenant reads like a compass. Teach your household to speak it at meals. Teach them to ask, does this decision serve our long-term assignment? Cultivate multiple streams of testimony. Do not rely on a single story of provision to justify every future step. Diversify your witnesses' testimonials, documented partnerships, community transformations, and small-scale pilot projects that demonstrate replicable impact. When I began to multiply testimony, doors that once required explanation opened without debate. Evidence is not a lack of faith, it is faith expressed with clarity. The unseen moves faster when the visible trusts the invisible without neglecting reasonable proof. Lean into prophetic rest as an act of strategy. Rest is not conceding, it is recalibrating. I call it holy inventory, periodic retreats to audit heart, and plans to read the ledger and to listen for new increments on the scroll. During one such retreat, a quiet word redirected resources into a program that later rescued dozens from cycles of scarcity. The unsealing is not only about gain, it is about redirecting gain into healing. Rest gives you perspective to do that well. Hold firm to wonder. Abundance can normalize and dull awe. Keep practices that cultivate astonishment, a ledger of miracles on your wall, a place where you pin signs and small confirmations. When you walk into sufficiency, let wonder be the lubricant that keeps generosity moving. I place small reminders in my space, an old receipt from a long answered prayer, a note from someone I helped, and they keep my hands from closing. Finally, teach legacy through celebration. Celebrate small victories with ritual and testimony. When your household sees the harvest named and celebrated, gratitude becomes inheritance. I learned to throw small seasons of testimony an evening where we read answered prayers aloud and named covenant partners. Those nights created a lineage of faith that now speaks before meetings, before grants, before contracts. The unsealing you steward is not yours alone. It is an inheritance in the making. My beloved, frame every decision by this question: will this expand mercy and mend what scarcity once broke? If the answer is yes, move with disciplined courage. If the answer is no, hold steady in the pruning. The scroll unsealing in you is meant to last. Treat it as sacred architecture, not a fleeting favor. You were prepared in the valley to be the ancestor of abundance. Walk like one who knows the cost of a promise and the mercy that kept it. Chosen one, hear me now as one who has walked the long valley and felt the sudden lift. I place my hand on your heart and speak with sacred certainty. Your scroll is open and heaven's timing has met your yes. You have not stumbled into this by accident or by wishful thinking. This is Kairos, ordained before your first breath, arriving with a precision that rearranges the unseen and the seen. I say this with tenderness and authority. What you called delay was always preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. Receive that as truth and let it steady your steps. Anointed one, I want you to hold 3 simple but powerful responses in your hands right now. These are not ceremonies, they are covenantal choices. First, consent out loud. Say with me, I consent to the unsealing. I accept what heaven has set before me to steward. When I first spoke a similar yes in the quiet of my own kitchen, a chain of small confirmations began to appear. Emails, calls, a timely meeting that shifted everything. That voice of consent is an invitation that heaven answers. Do not minimize it. Second, allocate with intention. Designate one small portion of what comes as sacred seed for assignment, one portion for margin, and one for joy. I learned this through a mistake. I once spent a sudden gift entirely on immediate relief, and a bigger aligned opportunity arrived 2 weeks later that required seed I no longer had. That loss taught me stewardship. Allocation is not fear, it is faith in structure. It tells heaven that you will not be careless with its gifts. Third, tether your heart to community. Invite one trusted soul to walk this season with you, a friend who will speak truth into your choices, a mentor who will press you into accountability, a prayer partner who will fight in the unseen. I know the temptation to protect your breakthrough by doing it alone, but heaven often moves through covenant. My own first real acceleration came because one person refused to let me carry it privately. They prayed, they stewarded, they spoke a door open. Let someone carry this with you. Beloved, when unfamiliar favor arrives, fear will whisper like wind. Name that fear and then do the work of response. Speak the declarations we practiced. Open your ledger and write 3 signs you saw this week, no matter how small. Make one measurable step toward the highest version of the calling you carry. These small acts are not busy work. They are the structural responses heaven expects from the steward it chooses. I will be direct. Do not confuse speed with lack of wisdom. When blessing rushes, slow down long enough to pray, consult, and document. I have seen seasons where rapid increase without governance fractured the mission it was meant to fund. Pressure prepared me for that hard lesson. I pay forward the wisdom by asking you to install basic systems, now an account for assignment, a written covenant for partnerships, a monthly audit with prayer. These structures honor the source and keep multiplication sustainable. There will be tests, invitations to hoard, to posture, to take shortcuts. Meet them with the language I give you. This is preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment. Say it aloud. Use it as a lens. When a tempting shortcut appears, hold up that phrase and ask, does this protect the mission? Does this preserve the vessel? If the answer is no, hold fast to the harder obedience. I learned to choose the harder path when a quick gain dangled. Choosing the harder path preserved fruit for seasons I could not yet see. Now I place a brief blessing on your path. This is not empty sentiment, it is a prophetic charge. I declare over you the seals are loosening, the hinges are shifting, and the favor that was written for you is aligning itself with your response. Doors that were closed will begin to turn. Conversations long delayed will find their timing. Provision will arrive in patterns that make room for your calling. Walk into these moments with reverence, not entitlement. Receive with gratitude and steward with courage. My child, keep your feet on the ground and your eyes lifted. Celebrate small confirmations publicly and keep the tender places sacred. Teach your household the language of stewardship. Mentor one emerging soul who will inherit not just resources, but a cultivated heart. I promise you from experience, when you multiply wisdom and grace, the expansion multiplies back in ways that outpace simple arithmetic. Anointed One. This word is a handing a map for the hour you stand in. Use it. Speak your consent, allocate with intention, tether to covenant, install basic governance, and say no to shortcuts that would break what has been built in you. Remember always, every delay, every ache, every late night was not punishment, but preparation, protection, pruning, and alignment, so that you would be ready for what now arrives. I will close this segment with a final activation. Place your hand over your chest where your scroll lives and say, I receive, I steward, I give. Breathe it into your bones. Let heaven meet that breath. I am with you in spirit, my beloved, cheering your yes. You were chosen for this hour. Stand in it with humble authority and relentless gratitude. Chosen one. I seal this word over you with reverent authority. Your sealed prophecy is opening, your hidden scroll is being revealed, and you stand in your exact Kairos moment on heaven's clock. I bless you now. May favor meet your yes. May provision find your hands. May wisdom steward every increase. Remain faithful, stay aligned with the flow of the anointing, and walk forward with gratitude for what is forming even now. My beloved, receive this as a divine send-off and move in humble courage. If this stirred your spirit, speak your affirmation below and share this promise with one who needs it.